Hi, welcome. In this video, I'm going to give just a very brief tutorial over the MySQL Workbench. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's open our Workbench. You can do this from your start menu. The first thing that we have to do is connect to our current SQL connection. Now, I've done this in the past, so it shows up right here under MySQL connections. But if this is the first time you're doing it, or it's not listed here under your connections, you'll need to go to Connect to Database. In this case, we are connecting to the local host. And if you followed the instructions from the file that you downloaded on how to install the MySQL product, then you should have set up your particular MySQL database under localhost port 3306, and you do have a user name root. You can also change this to the Scott user if you wanted to log in as Scott, but we're going to just stick with the uh, username root and say OK. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask us for the password. Now, you can install this in your Vault if you'd like. I typically don't because passwords change pretty quickly for me, as well as I want to make sure I am able to show everyone how to type in the password. So I just don't do that. But feel free if you want to do that, you can. So we say OK. And then our screen changes. Now, more than likely, your screen will change and it will show this administration tab first. No worries. This has got a lot of good information in here, and we can go in here and click the client connections just to see the different connections that are currently occurring. If you've got code running in the background, you may see a connection for your code. Um, Otherwise, all these current uh, connections are mostly due to the service. But we also have MySQL Workbench open and we've connected to this database. So that's why we're seeing some of the MySQL Workbenches over here. And we can see what user is connected. This event schedule is one of the services. So again, it's exactly what we would expect. So we're going to go ahead and close this window. Query 1 is a default window that opens up. I'm not going to worry about that right now. We're going to go ahead and close that. Where we want to really see some information is when we click over to schemas. These are all of our current schemas. Now this, hopefully you've installed at least the example database. I've installed both the example and the Java book. Now we can take a look at the example, and we can do this in multiple ways. We can select it and highlight it and then click this open inspector icon, and it will give us information about the actual database. So here we can see some different information about the database itself. We can see the tables that are in it, the different columns, any indexes we may have, so forth and so on. If you get to the point where you're adding some stored procedures, this is where you would see your stored procedures listed out. If we go into the Java book and do the same thing, we'll see that the Java book has a lot more tables. So therefore, we're going to have a lot more columns. A few indexes. I don't know if we have any triggers. No, probably no views and no stored procedures. No worries. But this is great information, but oftentimes we are looking for more information about a particular database or maybe a particular table. And we can, by all means, create a new query and utilize that query to do just that, right? We can dig down using queries. But one of the nice things about having our MySQL Workbench in the Navigator through the UI is we can also dig down into our data by doing what I just did, which is I clicked through the database into the tables and products, and then clicking this icon. As you can see, it actually creates the query for us and then runs that query. And here we are with our query of data. Now, I can come up here and I can also run my own queries. Now, be careful. You are logged in as root, most likely. And so if you start doing queries like insert and update and delete, that's going to affect the data in your database. And if you accidentally, let's say, I don't know, delete all the rows or a couple of rows, then your results, when you get to your coding part, may not be all that you were hoping for. So just be careful. The select statements are definitely the most easy to use, and really they don't cause any damage to this database. So in this case, we're just going to go ahead and do a simple query so I can show you how that works. Oftentimes I get the question, do I have to put select and from in all caps? You don't. It will work either way, and I'll show you that here in a second. It is a very common practice for those working on SQL queries that particular keywords like select and from are oftentimes in all caps. You can also do um, the where is oftentimes in all caps as well. So, but it does not matter. So once you've um, created the query you want to run, you do have to highlight it, and you can select either this execute or this execute. One is just anything that's selected will run. And this one is basically what's under the cursor. And because the cursor's on this line, it will run that. And there, in our results grid, we have just the VIN. Now, this is really important because at some point you're going to want to start doing queries in your code. And it's a lot easier to come in here and practice them because once you get it good in here, you can actually lift the query and put it into your code by copying and pasting. So there we just did a query, and I've asked the query to give me all the columns, that's the star, from this particular table where make, which is the column name, equals Chevrolet. Let's go back up here and run the query where it gives us all the data. As you can see, I didn't highlight it this time. I just put my cursor on that line, and then I ran the execute the statement under the keyboard cursor. Here I can show you how that works again. And then one more time. There we go. All right. We can also do select star from example product where price greater than, let's say 24,000. So let's just go back. We've got looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. So let's see the 14,000s here. Let's run this again. Make sure that the 14,000 is not there. It is not there. So our query is working exactly as we had hoped. Now, as you can notice, the 24,000, see if we go back and run all of our data, there is a row for 24,000. So why, when I run this row, do I not get the 24,000? And that's because I said greater than. If I want, and 24,000 is not greater than 24,000. If I want to see that row as well, I need to say greater than or equal to. And now that row shows up. So I hope that this video shows you a little bit of how to use the Workbench. I know using the command prompt, the MySQL command prompt, can be a little bit taxing because you're typing a lot out and the results grid is not as neat looking. So coming in here, it definitely is really nice to be able to kind of test out your queries. Just real quick, if you are using MySQL on a larger data set, notice how this is limited to 1,000 rows. And that is a safety feature because believe it or not, if you have a database or a table with lots and lots of rows, or your query is going to return lots and lots of rows, your query could slow down the server. So if you were working on a production data environment, which you should never do, I will tell you that. But if you were and you needed to run a query and the query went and just did a bunch of stuff like bringing a bunch of tables together and all kinds of information, you could slow down your query. So MySQL has implemented this limit to 1,000 rows just to help from mistakes like that happening. But you can say don't limit if you would like, and then your query would work without any limits. All right. Well, I hope that this video has helped you, and I hope that if you need any of your queries for your code, that you'll use the MySQL Workbench to find out what those queries look like, and then copy and paste them into your code. All right. Thank you.